Hello. Hey there, everyone. Oh, I get to play around with some of the craziness that's here on the Instagram live feed. So there is actually a TED thing on Instagram. And it's kind of cool. I am a two-time TEDx speaker, and I'm also the host of this show, Travel the World as a Speaker. So thank you for joining me, because tonight it's going to be a little bit of fun, and we're going to talk about The Weeknd because he just performed at the Super Bowl. So had an amazing Super Bowl halftime, up to subjective opinion. But we're going to talk about paying to play and unpaid exposure and whether or not it is worthwhile for you coming up as a speaker. So, and paying to play, basically you pay to be on stage. And we're going to talk about what has been reported, that he paid $7 million to do his own Super Bowl halftime show. And we have known this over the last few years, that Super Bowl halftime performances, which I learned just within the last few years, that they pay to be up there. And there's a reason. So we got to talk about unpaid exposure, paying to play, and whether or not it is worthwhile. So I'm excited to be here. So for my folks here on the Instagram, and I have a touch screen, so I have to be very careful with my computer. I'm going to go ahead and switch this over because the TED thing is really cool, but it probably is very annoying. I still, for some reason, love this. I love this one. I don't know if you can see it yet. So we're going to go to something a little bit more normal. Is this what we would call normal these days? I am in black and white, so I don't know how to get out of black and white when I'm doing this. Okay, see, this is what happens when you do things on the fly. You break things. All right, so everybody just hang with me. We're getting there. We're getting there. I just got to go find one that is kind of relatively normal. I usually choose the fix my face one, but it has me in black and white, and I don't think I want to be black and white. So I think what we're going to do is go for snow. That's what we're going to do here on Instagram. So for all of my YouTube people, I know you're like, what the heck is going on? All right, so here's the deal with Travel the World as a Speaker. We live stream here on Instagram and on the YouTube. So if you want to come check out the graphics, because I'm going to be showing a couple of graphics from the Weeknd Super Bowl halftime performance, which I personally enjoyed. But what we're going to do here, we usually talk a little bit about travel, and then we talk about speaking and how you can leverage speaking so that you can travel the world. But I wanted to do a quick take on this one tonight because I think it's going to be really interesting for us to talk about unpaid, sorry, my headphones fell, to talk about not being paid as a speaker, basically unpaid exposure and paying to play. And those are two different things in the same bucket, but we got to talk about them because as a speaker, you may actually find yourself in these positions more often than not. So let me get my headphones. This is a live show, so you kind of get things live. I wish it could be better, but we're going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to switch my camera here. Hey, so that you can see me. And what I'm going to be doing right now is actually just checking my sound. And I'm going to tell you that this show is brought to you by iFind You Close. And what we do over at iFind You Close is we go out and research and find speaking opportunities and send them to you. So every Monday we post a new batch of speaking opportunities. Like today, we actually just posted 6 or 7 events all around manufacturing, and very interesting manufacturing. When I've helped clients get on stage, they actually pay. So there are a couple of events around manufacturing that you might want to go check out. If you are not a member of iFind You Close, all you got to do is go check out ifindyouclose.com. And while you're there, you can get a free assessment on whether or not on attracting high paid speaking engagement. So let me go ahead and check my sound over here. Sometimes I think my sound is too loud. If you all think my sound is too loud, just let me know. Actually, I'm going to bring it down just a little bit. So, all right. So I had to bring my sound down just a little bit. I'm still trying to work through all of these kinks and everything of going live. And if any of you watch and if you got any sound issues or I can make the sound better, just let me know. All right. So I'm not going to give you a travel story today because typically we have a travel story. And And I tell you about these things, but I really do want to talk about the Super Bowl. No, I have not traveled to the Super Bowl. I have traveled to Tampa Bay, though. I mean, I really did like Tampa Bay. Really cool place. But I want to really talk about this unpaid exposure, especially if you're going to try to leverage speaking to travel the world or to grow your business. You will find yourself in this position quite a bit. And for those of you who don't know The Weeknd, I have to say, people in my age range definitely started showing their age because they had no clue who The Weeknd was. And while I was watching the Super Bowl, I've heard his music. I can't say that I know everything about him, but of course, I don't have sound here, so you're not hearing the sound. But I absolutely enjoyed his music, and I think he did a good job. And he didn't lip sync. I mean, we haven't seen that in a while where somebody did not lip sync in a Super Bowl. Just saying. Just saying. So if you have not checked out The Weeknd's performance, be sure. I'll be sure to put the link in here. You can go over to, I think, the NFL's website, and you can check out his performance. And I thought he did an amazing job. I mean, that's just me. I thought he did an amazing job with his setup. I'll move out the way so you can see here. See here. I thought he did an amazing job with the setup and you know, making it a little bit more of a concert for all of us to hang out and seeing somebody actually sing. And one of the interesting things about The Weeknd's performance is he's probably one of the only artists in the entire world who performed in front of an audience of 25,000 people. Now, we're not going to talk about everything else that happened. You know, mask, no mask, disease, no disease, pandemic, no pandemic. We will leave that alone. I'll leave that up for your own judgment. But kudos to him. Kudos to him for being able to do this, because it has been reported that he had a couple of issues with the Grammys. And I think before, the Grammys were supposed to be a week after the Super Bowl. And because he wanted to do both, the Grammys said nope. And he said, oh, we're going to do this. And unfortunately, he was not nominated for any Grammys this year, even though his album was basically on the #1 spot for, weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, basically months throughout 2020 with one of his new songs. I think it's Blinding Lights. As you can see, I've heard the music, but I can't tell you all of the things. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about The Weeknd. So we got to talk about The Weeknd. We got to talk about Pay to Play. And we have to talk about, hey, Carrie, how you doing over there? And we have to talk about unpaid exposure. Now, like I said, reportedly, The Weeknd paid $7 million to be a part of the Super Bowl halftime. What we've learned over the last few years, you have to pay. They don't get paid to do that. Now, of course, they can go and get sponsors. The sponsors can help bring in some money so that they can pay for the setup. But for the most part, they're not getting paid. They are footing the bill. And what we learned about The Weeknd and his Super Bowl halftime was they actually cut the budget. They cut the budget, so he brought in his own money. So we don't know if this is a cumulative $7 million or he brought in an additional $7 million to do this performance. Now, the biggest issue a lot of people are having is he had to pay out of pocket to do that. And a lot of people thought, one, it's a waste of time. It's not worth the money to do this. But we have to really talk about this, especially for those of you who are trying to use speaking to grow your business, to travel the world, or do whatever it is, to grow your authority. You will find yourself in these situations where, I hate to say it, a lot of speakers do pay to play and a lot of speakers do unpaid exposure. And you have to really start researching whether or not this is the right move for you. And where we get this wrong is we don't research. We don't ask enough questions. We get caught up in FOMO and we're just excited that somebody asked us to do something. And so we say yes. And then we come back home. We're upset. We've spent a lot of money. And then we start complaining about everything, where a lot of it really is on us. Now, if you've been watching the show, I've definitely been telling you got to ask questions. You have to ask a lot of questions for any opportunity that you come across. Even if it sounds good, you still have to ask questions so that you can make sure you're walking into the situation that is right for you. Okay, so let me explain what unpaid exposure is. Basically, when in the world of speaking, it is speaking for free. Unpaid exposure is getting on your local news channel. And to be honest, some of them, they actually charge you, but getting on your local news channel to to answer questions about whatever it is your expertise in. So if you see little clips of people like, oh my gosh, I was on a local news, they didn't get paid for it, and that's it. They didn't get paid. That's unpaid exposure. Going on a talk show is unpaid exposure, and sometimes it is actually pay to play. So we got to talk about TV. It's a little bit differently, but when it comes to speaking, a radio interview, podcast interview, these are unpaid exposures. Speaking locally to your chamber of commerce and they aren't paying you. That is unpaid exposure. Now, a lot of us, we like unpaid exposure. If you're brand new to this, yeah, you need to take as much unpaid exposure as you can so that you can build your credibility. But you still need to ask questions. You need to make sure it is the right audience for you. You need to make sure what you're getting out of it, because that's where we find ourselves in a bind, or we are getting upset. All right, when it comes to this unpaid exposure. So I'm going to tell you a couple of things. I actually have notes tonight. That's how crazy this is. If I can go find my notes. I actually do have notes as soon as I find them, because there are a couple of things I want to make sure I don't miss when we talk about this. Now, we talked about unpaid exposure and trying to explain exactly what that is. Now let's talk about pay to play. Now, in the world of speaking and marketing and public relations, pay to play is if you pay us, we will expose you. I mean, not like physically expose you, but if you pay us, you will get exposure. So there is unpaid exposure both ways, where I don't have to pay you to get on your platform, your stage, your interview, your magazine, whatever it is. Unpaid, I don't have to pay you, and you will not be paying me. The agreement is I can come in sometimes, and the agreement is I can come in at times and I can promote my business. That is as far as you will get with unpaid exposure. With pay to play, you have to pay. This is not you getting paid. It is you paying. And this happens more than what you think. All right. A lot of people who are on television shows, they pay to be on the television show. A lot of people who do this, the Saturday morning local news stations, they pay to be on these shows, because now you get to promote yourself like up and down in all kinds of ways. For a lot of stages, speak to sell. And speak to sell is you get up there and you are able to sell your $5,000, $10,000, $25,000, $500, whatever program. 9 times out of 10, a lot of those people have agreed to pay to get on that stage. All right. They pay to get on a stage, or they have some other deals where, I take a percentage of what you're doing, whatever it is. There's a lot of money exchanging based on how many people are there, how many things are sold. So, and a lot of people love this. A lot of people love pay to play, because you have a little bit more freedom to sell your products, sell your consulting, and that's it. Now, one, you need to know how to sell. If you don't know how to sell, pay to play is going to literally ruin you. I have been a part of pay to play, and if you don't have your stuff together, I hate to tell you, it's not really going to work out for you. And then, of course, we know the other traditional model is somebody pays you, or you can promote your business and things like that from the stage. So what we saw with The Weeknd is he did a pay to play. He paid so that he can have the exposure during the Super Bowl halftime. Now, what we have to talk about now is this the right thing for you to do? Is it the right thing? It might be. Now, of course, I am a researching type person, and I have to say on the YouTube channel, sorry if I'm leaning into the thing. Actually, let me go ahead and fix my Instagram camera so that I won't lean too much, because I'm trying to lean into the scene here. Sorry about that. I know. Sorry about that. I'm trying to do notes. I'm trying to do all this stuff. And I'm trying to be like entertaining at the same time. I know. I'm trying to do all the things here. All right. First, let me pull up my notes, because I don't want to miss exactly what I wanted to tell you. So I don't want to don't want to miss out on that. I fixed my Instagram camera. I've explained pay to play. And I've explained unpaid exposure. So I want to let you know, for any of you on the Instagram channel or on the YouTube channel, if you have questions, please put them in the comment box, because I want to make sure that one, you understand what this is, especially if you're new. If you're new to this, you need to understand, because when I started speaking, I didn't know. And I don't know, for some reason, I'm just being straight up honest, a lot of people were kind of shady with trying to explain this, because I didn't understand. And I don't like it when people are shady. You have no idea. I really don't like it when people are shady. All right, so I got everything together. All right, so here's the deal. The way things go wrong when it comes to pay to play is we don't take time to do the research. Pay to play or unpaid exposure. And I'm talking about pay to play when we go home and it didn't work out for us. We didn't make any money. We didn't do all the things we said we needed to do, because we go in with high hopes. I'm going to make $1 million off of this group. And we got to really pay attention to that. And then when it comes to unpaid exposure, we have to really understand. Now, where it goes wrong with unpaid exposure and paying to play, no matter what. Pay to play has a bigger one, because if you really don't plan, you will kind of find yourself in a financial hole. That is not what we want. You have to have a plan. So you got to have I put my notes in here. Oh my gosh. All right. So here's the deal. Okay. I found my notes. Yay. All right. So what happens, and when things go wrong with pay to play or unpaid exposure, is either we have no plan, we have no products to sell, and we have no purpose for why we are doing this. So let me break down the having no plan. So sometimes when we get into these situations where people are like, you can come and speak for us or run a workshop or do all these things and you will get exposure. And then we're like, oh my gosh, yes, because it's the right audience. I can convert and blah, 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 blah. And what happens, we don't ask any other questions. So this is where we have to plan. You have to have a plan of how this unpaid exposure is going to work for you. The same thing with pay to play. You need to have a plan. You have to have a plan, because sometimes unpaid exposure, it still costs us money. Sometimes unpaid exposure is just not driving down the street to a local chamber of commerce to speak. And even then, if we print out booklets, if we print out flyers, if we print out things, if we decide to bring snacks, if we decide to fly across country, we're still paying money for this unpaid exposure. And you have to have a plan. And on top of that, if you have paid to be a part of this and you have no plan, you will just find yourself in a financial hole. You can find yourself in a financial hole. I have to say, I have traveled to do a lot of speaking gigs, and I've had to foot the bill. And, because I was going for the exposure, going for the conversions. And yeah, you come back home and you spent $1,000 and you got 3 clients. Now, it also depends on how much you're charging your 3 clients. If you're charging thousands and thousands of dollars, it may be perfect for you. Now, if you're charging just $100, that may not be, you didn't even tip the bucket over with how much you spent to be a part of this thing. So that's why we have to be very, very clear with what is the plan when we're walking into a paid exposure type of a situation. I know I had to sit down. I was cutting myself off. I get so excited about this. All right. So first we need to have a plan, and we need to have a product. Every speaker that I have been talking to for the last few months, every person who signs up for iFind You Close, every person I have done an assessment for, I tell them you need to have a product as a speaker. That's why I harp here on the channel, on the YouTube channel. If you watch the videos, I'm telling you, you got to have some products. I don't care if it's $5. I don't care if it's $25 or $100. This is why, and having a product really does help. So let me explain a little bit of this, and I'll go back and tying this to The Weeknd. So The Weeknd is a top-notch artist. He's been on the Billboard, top 100, top albums. He has Grammys. Now, The Weeknd's album dropped last March in 2020. And the way his only product is, he has probably plenty of products, is people booking him to come and sing. And you see the situation we're in now, or people buying something of his so that he can make money. So how I can relate this to us as speakers, either when we get on stage or when we go somewhere, either people can book us for our consulting, which is at a higher price point. The same thing. If you want to book the Weeknd for your baby's birth Christmas party, then you will be paying a lot of money. I mean, that's just it. You will be paying a lot of money. But for those of us who can't pay a lot of money for the Weeknd or for your consulting, what I can do is go and buy some of your lower cost products so I can have a little bit of you, and then I can keep saving to work with you. So his lower cost products is his album and his streaming on Spotify. So what I did look up was, before I did this, I think even last year when his album came out, he had 220 million streams, or 220.7 million streams in the release of the album. I think it was in the first couple of weeks, or the first week. And the way the math goes is that they get paid like 0.006 cents. The average is 0.0043 cents. I know, I did all this math. About 0.006 for every song that is streamed. So that means he probably made a couple of $1,000,000. Let me do some quick math real quick. So with the 220 million, let me get my calculator. And I have to remember I can't use my numbers because I love my husband, but he changed my numbers. So we do 0.006 times 220. We got to get to the millions. All right. So, I mean, with that, let's just say he is at that 0.006 frame. He made $1.3 million off of the 220 million streams. With his low-cost product, which means all of us, we can go on Spotify, Amazon. I don't know if he's on Tidal. We can go and stream his music, and he makes money. And of course, he is definitely of a younger generation, and the younger generation knows instantly how to get on the Spotifys and everything and get to work. So we have to look at the fact that he has a lower cost product. It is his music on the streaming platforms. And I'm pretty sure you can go buy merch and all this stuff, but we'll just talk about this one thing. So he paid to play. He had a plan. He said, look, I know I put out my album last year, 220 million people streamed just in the first week. And so a lot of people, and he's been at #1. I mean, basically he's in the top 5 all of last year. So people are playing his music. They are still playing his music because he is still charting. And that means, all right, I can pop back in here at the Super Bowl. I can get millions of views. Even if people don't know me, they will start going and streaming. Even for the first 30 seconds, he will still get paid for that. So his high cost product, just like any other consultant, is him one-on-one in person in concert. And he has a lower cost product to kind of pick up everything else. So as you can see, he already had a plan. I'm just going to assume he had a plan for why they were doing this Super Bowl halftime. Other than to say, okay, I did a Super Bowl halftime and it's pretty cool. He had a plan. Now, the other thing is he had a product. He had a product. What happens with so many of us speakers is that we don't have a product. And I have to tell you, I will admit to this happened to me the first few times, the first couple of years of speaking. I had my consulting that I was trying to sell, but my consulting was at a higher price point, and that meant that as soon as I started talking, some people were instantly out because, you got to be a better salesperson, to be straight up honest, if you want to do all of that. Now, did I convert people? Heck yeah, I converted people. But if I had a lower cost product or something else that didn't involve me, I probably could have made more money. And by the time I did put out my first membership program, I did make more money when I wasn't involved. So that's where he actually had a plan and he had a product. And this is why I get on all of the speakers inside of iFind You Close. You need to have a product outside of your big time consulting product or big time speaking, because I want you to be able to get all the people who are like, you know what, I like you, but I can't afford that. But I want the little version of you. That's your book. That's your templates. That's your guides. That's your courses. All of those things. Now, the last piece that comes to why this exposure and unpaid exposure and pay to play doesn't work. I've already told you, sometimes we don't have a plan, we don't have a product, and we don't have a purpose. We don't have a purpose for why we are doing this. And what I mean is, I know I'm crossing my arms because I'm about to, you got to have a reason why you're getting on stage in the first place. Why are you paying to play? And if it's just for exposure, I think I need you to dig a little bit deeper, because you have to understand, like, my purpose is, one, maybe you just wanted to do it. Maybe it was just a bucket list item for the Weeknd to say, you know what? I just wanted to be a part of the Super Bowl. There is nothing wrong with that answer, but you need to have a purpose. Some people may say, you know what? I think one year Beyonce dropped an album the same day she did the Super Bowl. So she had a purpose. She was like, look, I got a plan, I got a product, and my purpose is to get people into my plan so they can buy my product. And I think that was that 2016? I mean, because nobody knew, like, oh, one, we didn't know Beyonce was going to be a part of the Super Bowl. And then she dropped an album I think the night before. So everybody was like, whoa. So she had a product, she had a plan, and she had a purpose. And some of the other people, you got to have a purpose for why you're doing this and for why you're getting on stage. One of my purposes was so I could travel the world. That's why I do what I do. And I'm okay with whatever consequences or challenges I'm run into, because I had a purpose. And I have also done speaking gigs where I thought the exposure was just enough, and I really didn't have a purpose. I thought I did, but I had a purpose, and I walked in without a plan or without a product, and it never went well. And of course, I'm $1,800 in the hole. And yes, you can possibly spend that much money to get on stage in front of people. So that's why I say you got to make sure you understand what it is that you're doing, and being very clear before you walk in. Now, the other people who are saying that the Weeknd spent a lot of money and it wasn't worth the exposure. Now, I got to tell you, a lot of people don't know who the Weeknd is. I know it sounds crazy. A lot of people in my age group may have heard the song, but he's very big with younger people. Now, in my timeline on Facebook, I saw a lot of people saying, like, who is this? What am I listening to? Now, here's the thing with that type of exposure, because he did the research and figured this exposure was the right kind for him. That's the other thing. You got to make sure it's the right kind of exposure for you. Now, as of this moment, I'm pretty sure a lot of people had no clue. The people who didn't have a clue who the Weeknd was, they probably went to the YouTube channel. And as of right now, he's had over 12 million views. And if you're like me, you watched it last night and like, oh my gosh, I like that song. Guess what? You got out your phone and you downloaded one of his songs on Spotify, Amazon, or wherever his music is, or you bought the album. You may have done that. And you had the other people whose kids had to come and tell them, like, this is the Weeknd, listen to all this stuff, get on the YouTube channel. And there's always going to be a song that somebody likes. So his exposure is actually probably paying off big time. And that in the next, I mean, who knows how many streams he's had of his song. If he did spend $7 million to be a part of this, and I mean, his new album back in March had 220 million streams the first week. And we know that on average, if he's at 0.006 getting paid per stream, that's what, $1.3 million. Who's to say that right now he may have made this money back up, or in the next few days, he might have made this money back up. His exposure not only just got him in front of the audience at the Super Bowl, it got him the audience of the people watching the Super Bowl and the people who didn't know who he was, and the people who like to just go to YouTube and watch this thing over and over again around the world. That's part of the plan when it comes to exposure. You need to make sure it is the right exposure for you. Now, one of the things that happened with me when it came to speaking, because I really did want to grow my business and I had a plan. Now, the thing was, in the beginning, I didn't have a clear plan, but when I worked with my business coach, we created a plan. And she told me, like, all right, Phylecia, you've done enough free speaking for smaller engagements. You're done. Now we have to limit those, especially if I wasn't getting what I needed out of it. That's the thing. You gotta have your plan of what you're trying to get out of it. For me, a lot of my speaking was to travel, one, to just get my name out there, and two, just to build credibility. That was a lot of the speaking that I did in the earlier days. Now, what happened was we started limiting some of the ones that didn't give me great exposure and went to bigger events, even though I wasn't being paid, and I got bigger exposure. And so you gotta put that in the plan. of what type of exposure. Not all exposure is the right kind of exposure. You'll be surprised, getting on the local news may not be the right exposure for your business, but getting on Oprah for unpaid exposure might be perfect for your business. And that's where you got to sit down and figure out what this plan, you got to research, and you have to ask questions, because what I don't want you is to do all of this and you hated it. I mean, it happens. Or you hated it, you realize you spent a lot of money and it didn't work for you. So that's why we got to really pay attention to this unpaid exposure and the paying to play. Now, for the Weeknd, I think this was a really good move for him. Absolutely one of the best moves for him, to be honest. Because look at the situation we're in right now. We're in a pandemic. For all the concert heads, nobody has gone to a concert in over a year. From what I can tell, a lot of major artists have not done online concerts. They've done a song or two here. The one of the concerts I went to was a K-pop concert. I saw BTS last year, and it was pretty spectacular watching it online. But one thing that he got out of it is that he got to perform in front of a live audience, which a lot of people have not done. He got to perform in front of a live audience that is pretty much global, because people do watch the Super Bowl around the world. He got to basically double down on the music that came out last year, or the 3 other songs or music that are attached to his Grammys. And so people were like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot this song. Let me go download that and put it on my playlist." Just from this alone, I mean, he has 12 million views as of right now. I'm pretty sure if I refresh, he'll have even more views on. I mean, yeah, it's like at the 14 million now. That's how many people are watching. I have no idea what he's doing on the streaming, but for him, that $7 million was actually a really good idea. And he looked like he was having fun last night too. So he probably just did it because, one, is going to help the business, is going to help his exposure, and he probably had fun. And that's the other thing. You got to figure out why you're doing this, because if you're really not having fun, you don't need to be doing this. You really don't. This should not be a chore. And a lot of the speaking gigs that I've had, I get paid. I've only paid to play in the beginning. I don't do that anymore. It's just not something it's not a model that I like. But I have done the unpaid exposure just to be in front of an audience for credibility. And that's how I've tied it all into travel, because, one, I needed a purpose to get up and do this. Otherwise, if I had to foot my own bill, I don't understand why am I doing it? And it has paid off. I've gotten clients. I've gotten one-on-one clients. I've gotten other gigs. It has paid off for me. So that's why I really want you to kind of look at all of the different things that are going on when it comes to unpaid exposure and paying to play. You have to decide if it's the right move for you and if it's something that you want part of your business. All right, I think I've talked long enough. If you have any questions about anything, please be sure to put them down in the comment box. I have to start standing now because I got to start logging off. So for those of you who joined me, hopefully this was, if you watched the Super Bowl, I hope you enjoyed it. I really did. I thought he did a great job. And yeah. If you're going to complain, people just complain about anything these days. But I thought he did a great job. Good for him. Because there are a lot of us who are speakers who would love to be in front of a live audience right now. A live audience. We would love that. And he was able to do it. So hopefully it worked out for him. And hopefully you got a few things on how you can kind of reframe your perspective around unpaid exposure and paying to play. So with that, for my Instagram folks, I will see you tomorrow. And for everybody here on YouTube, I appreciate you for being here. And of course, if you got any questions, just let me know. Take care of yourself. See you tomorrow.